So we made 133,000 last year.
Meeting to order. This is the first budget workshop. Today's date is Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. And Commissioner Christian will lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Can we all stand, please? Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this great city we live in, Leesburg, Florida, for such a great country. As we celebrate Independence Day this weekend, we just thank you, God, for the freedom that we all share and we appreciate and love. Tonight, we prepare ourselves for our budget workshops, and I pray for our city manager, his finance staff, and the city department heads, and all those workers who will have to work underneath the budget that we vote on and implement this year. So I pray for the mayor, the city council, that we can make decisions that will help our city grow, flourish, and prosper. Pray for our business owners around our city that this budget will impact, preferably in a positive way, and those who are less fortunate ourselves, we pray, God, that we can do things tonight that will be beneficial for their lives and change forever. Pray for our servicemen around the world, our first responders, and all those that make the city of Leesburg as great as it is. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There he is. And with that, I'll turn it over to our city manager.
All right, so before I get, we've got 3 budget hearings scheduled today, obviously the 5th. Then we have the 7th at 5:30, and then hopefully we finish everything off the 12th, which is next Tuesday at 5:30. And as we always do, we always break it down into different funds. Tonight's focus is a bit of a general overview of the entire budget. So we're going to throw all the bad stuff at you that's coming to you. And there's some good stuff too. And then talk about and end up with civic funding. So that's tonight's plan. With that, let me start off and jump right into the good, the bad, and some silver lining stuff. In particular, I'd just start off with this fiscal year. A lot of credit goes to Brandy and Jim again for putting this stuff together. Before I forget, and I know we got 3 more days, and the department head team. I think in my time in city management, this is probably one of the more difficult budgets we've had to do. Difficult years that stand out in my mind. Probably when the first crash of the recession, like in 2010, 11, and 13, dealing with the ad valorem throughout the state of Florida and taxable value dropping. It had that early 2000 buildup, and then everything drops. And I don't think the first few years here were very hard. I think we made some tough changes with electric rates, and we did some stuff with cash, and I think we've made some good strategies. But this year was extremely hard, and I think a few things caught up with us. Number one, the economy, unfortunately, and inflation. We see that throughout the budget, specifically in personnel costs and some operation costs, and which in turn is affecting our utilities. So, unfortunately, since I've been here, we haven't raised utility rates beyond CPI since I've been here. So we will be talking about that a little bit tonight. And then as we get into the utility funds, we'll talk about it specifically. And then taxes. While it's not a tax increase, it is, we're recommending the current rate, which is by state standards, an increase. But we can talk about that a little bit too. So that's the quick overview. So the highlights. This is actually a good thing. The fleet lease remains the same at 75%, and we've toyed with that, and so what we do especially for review for newer commissioners is when we do we do a debt service on a vehicle basically, and so we take the value of a vehicle, we divide it by its life, and then that department makes a lease payment. So for real round terms, we've got a $20,000 car. Well, nothing's $20,000 car anymore. We've got a $50,000 car. It's got a life of 5 years. So the lease on that is $10,000. So whatever department that is, electrical, we're talking general funds, so I'll keep it general. Fire department will pay $10,000 into the fleet fund, and then that goes into extrapolation of how we purchase our equipment. We've been pretty good in the fleet fund. We've worried about where this is, and so when you take that number across all vehicles, that would be 100%. Our lease payments have been 75% of that number. We were at one point at 50%. We raised the 75%. We always kind of thought we were going to have to tick that up to 100%. We're recommending staying at 75%. I think Cliff and the Fleet Gang have done a really good job. We're still sitting at about $2-3 million in excess in the fleet fund, and this year we're also projecting the purchase of a fire truck. We'll get to that in a little bit. That really sets up the fire department well to replace all the main engines. We'll talk about that more when we get to the fire department. But that's a really good thing. And so we're making those purchases, keeping the fleet reasonably new, and I think hopefully we can stay around that 75%. That really helps the general fund more than any of the other funds. Our proposed ad valorem rate for this year's budget is 4.0192. That maintains the current. The rollback rate to keep the same amount of revenue that we generated last year, less new growth, is actually 3.6 million. I'm going to use round numbers. So 4 is our current, 3.6 is the rollback. Those numbers, when we computed the budget, were based on the initial report from the assessor's office, June 1. Every month now, July 1, August 1st, until the end of, I think our final true up is in October when we get all the numbers. Those numbers will change a little bit. Well, good news, that number changed pretty big in their July 1 report. So based on the current rate of 4 mils, there's an extra $267,000 that's not in the book. Our recommendation, though, is to stay with that 4 mils and to put that 267 into capital spending. We talked about capital spending a lot at the last meeting. There were 2 specific items that needed to get into the budget from commissioner requests, which you guys can talk about when we do the CIP stuff, which was fixing the Partnership Arts Center building and doing the last round of improvements to Pat Thomas Field. So that 267 gets both of those items accomplished. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, we feel pretty comfortable with where we balance the budget at 4 mils. The extra 267 can turn into a rollback, not a full rollback. You can get a little. It's about 3.8 mils and balance the budget. So for those that have been homesteaded, that's a little bit of a tax reduction, but for new folks and businesses, that's still a little bit of an increase. We didn't do the math on it. We can have that discussion in more detail tonight, or when we do the DR 420, which will be on the agenda for Monday. And remember, the DR 420 is the form by which this commission sends to the appraiser's office so that the property appraiser then sends out the tax. No, it's the tax office. The tax collector sends out the tax notices with our not to exceed millage. So we'll definitely say make the DR 420 the 4 mils, and then we can have discussions on if we want to leak that back. Flat out, we're not going to recommend. If you guys want to go lower, we'll figure out a ways to do it. That'll mean unilateral cuts, but you shouldn't go below 3.8. That budget's that tight. And the 4 gives you that little bit of
You made
capital
a comment
funds.
about capital improvements too that need to get in the budget. I'm not. Maybe I don't think I missed a meeting, but they said the Pat Thomas filing numbers and the partnership building. What numbers are we talking about on that?
250 for each. I think we put 250 in the budget already for Pat Thomas. We didn't get, and the Pat Thomas numbers was this at a Commissioner Cannell's request, was the continuation. There were some things that we chopped out. Remember, we put the $500,000 in this 22 budget to do those improvements at Pat Thomas. We fixed the fence, we did the painting, we did some repair to the iron, we put up the new fence. The major stuff that didn't get tackled because we didn't exceed the $500,000, but what we didn't get done were the big fans that go in the arena, the ballpark, the bleachers, hover bleachers, the concession stand, exhaust fans. Those are the big ones that pop out. There was something else in there. PA upgrades and extension of the third field baseline fences.
And we had a presentation on that?
we will make you one. I don't have one for you tonight. We can do that during the capital projects. When the next, that'll be Thursday. We'll go through the capital projects.
So we can just throw stuff in the budget, then we talk about it later. I mean, how did it get to that point? Because we didn't discuss that.
Commissioner Cannell requested it, so I put it in the budget for a discussion item when we talk about CIPs.
Okay. I might need to send some stuff to put in the budget too then.
Okay, that's why we're here, Commissioner.
All right.
All right, so that's where we're at. So 4 mills get you that 267 that can be used for capital, or 3.8 is a balanced budget, and the 3.6, and those numbers are probably rotational. If you want to get to 3.6, you're probably looking at 267 plus 260, ballpark, little over $500,000 that would need to be cut.
So 3.6, if we go to 3.6, we have to cut $500,000 out of the current budget. That's what your estimation.
250-ish.
250.
250-ish to get the rollback. Your fire assessment fee remains the same. On salaries and wages, we always talk about these. We're recommending a 5% increase for all those employees, kind of with our quasi-merit COLA system that we've used, which I think has worked well. We are recommending bottom and top of the range adjustments, bottom so that we can continue to catch up with the $15 an hour, which we're a couple years away from, and this gets us on track to do that. And each year we get a number of employees, and we've, again, 500 employees roughly. About 30 to 40 of those employees have now capped out. So we're recommending to open up the top of those scales so that those employees can receive a full COLA to keep up with inflation. That recommendation matches what we've done with the collective bargaining units. The city managers also program for 5% merit to match the other employees. We also are recommending a modification of the standby and shift differential pay. There was a request from many of the departments. Again, Commissioner Cannell brought that one to our attention, and that's about an $80,000 increase. But basically, what that does is it allows all employees in public works and utilities. So that's electric, water, sewer, gas, solid waste, public works. I'm sure I'm missing somebody in there, but typically, right now our policy is we get a 10-cent pay differential, and what do we pay you, $10 to wait by the phone. The request is to match the PBA agreement, which is $25 a day, and and a dollar versus the dollar versus 10 cent for the shift differential, and that's in case you're working out of class, right?
Shift differential is working after 4 p.m.
Oh, if you got to stay past close, you get a couple extra bucks. And then we keep the 2-hour minimum for overtimes whenever they close.
Okay.
So some departments, right. So that's in there, and then we also proposed, which I think I vetted most of you on individually, the department head pay scale modification. And this is really done to keep pace with our competitors and making sure that the top line supervisors are paid. So I have proposed this breakdown, kind of a 3-tiered system for department heads, and to take them out of the numbered pay scale and put them in this new scale, which is weaved into the budget. So when you approve the budget, you approve this. So if you don't like this, let me know now, we'll modify. And that's basically 3 categories of department heads. I think we have utility department heads that focus primarily on utilities or that relate directly to utilities. We have the emergency service department heads, and then general department heads. So utilities department heads are probably the the hardest to recruit, the hardest to find. The most technical backgrounds, electric, finance, gas, IT, and public works are in that case. Department head with a pay range of 115 to 190. I think that's where you really need to go to be competitive. There's really nobody as far as an operational standpoint who I'm concerned about. leaving the sit and knock on woods. I think the department head team is pretty solid, but I'll just, for the spirit of full disclosure on how I overview the management team, I guess with all due respect to the one sitting in the room, which would be Jim, would probably be the closest in that group to retirement. Although Jim says he loves working for me and loves the city, so he's never going to leave, even though he constantly gets in trouble with his wife about it. I don't think I disclosed anything I shouldn't have there, Jim. So,
Just the truth.
in that, you know, we on that news too, our electric director Brad, he's not here because it's not a utility night. You know, Brad, as you guys know, I don't want to disclose names and HIPAA violate, but my read on Brad's situation there is that he's really enjoyed coming over to us from OUC. He's got a good background there, so I think we've got a few years there. Probably the other director in there, he's in the room too, Tino, has given his 2-year notice. So, you know, if all goes as planned, you know, nobody gets hit by a bus, Tino's probably the next director we'll be replacing in a couple years. And so Gas and Public Works obviously new, and Cliff hasn't thrown the book at me yet, so I don't think he's running off anywhere. But that framework I think is good, and frankly I think it's that range that we need to look at. Emergency services, both chiefs there. I think, you know, obviously we just promoted Joe, and Rob's been pretty steady. But that again, that range is a competitive range to keep that if we do need to seek those. And then the list on the other end, deputy city manager, budget director, which I promoted to a director position because of the work the budget director does, which is Brandy. The building official, the city clerk, housing director, HR director, library, planning, zoning, recreation. That range, both of them all three ranges have that same $75,000 spread, and I think those ranges should give us at least 5 years or so, depending on the crazy economy. But those pay scales are modified in the book.
Those pay scales keep us competitive with other cities.
I'm going to say they keep us reasonably competitive. I think there's probably police is a difficult one because that one seems to grow exponentially every time we get Rob up to speed. Another community outpaces us. There he is looking at us. Rob reminds me pretty quickly where, you know, a couple other chiefs in Lake County are. I think Chief Mara is happy where he's at, and that's reasonably competitive. Frankly, if I have anything to worry about in that scale, it's probably, Brad's not here, so I can say it. It's electric, and frankly, finance a little bit. So.
My only concern is that while we don't need to do anything now, I think that utilities top range is too low. I think in the next 5 years, especially when you look at the gas and electric customers, and then the impact that that's going to have on the other ones as well. Now, yeah. Anyways, we're just gonna have so many new customers with the Villages expansion that it's gonna put a strain there. That when you go out and you're talking about, you know, you may have 1,000 employees in 3 or 4 years. I mean, that's like not a far-fetched idea. And you know, I think it'd be better to have the range a little higher so you don't have to come back and when you're out recruiting and have this whole conversation over again. But that's just me.
My concern, Al, is that we don't want you to, if you have to recruit someone and you in a $5,000 turnoff, then you say, well, I got to go back to the city commission, and you look at the deputy city manager. I think the city manager always should be paid more than anybody else, no matter what their title is, because I think you're responsible for everybody. But if you say you're making $200,000 and you hire a deputy city manager making $150,000, $50,000 less than you, then that person generally should be someone, if you go somewhere else, they should be able to step into your role, and to me, that's a $50,000 difference of pay. So even if you don't pay them that much, I think the range should be to a place where you can hire somebody that you could look at and say, that person may take my spot. And as Roebuck is saying about utility director, we grow real fast and you having to maneuver, even hire an assistant director, and they may come and say, give me 175, 180. You got your head guy making 190, and you're trying to now come back to a commission who may say, we don't want to change the rate of pay. So I think as we grow, we're going to have to look at really being competitive, because we do run almost a business as a city when it comes to our utilities.
I will go back and address those.
And that was just my thoughts on that. Not you got to pay
Hey,
them the
when
top
you guys
range,
say I'm
but-
being cheap towards personnel, that's a good thing. So we're trying to find middle ground and keep it within the budget and still stay competitive. So we'll go back and take a look at those numbers.
And you may want to talk about it later, but I will just add that I said something out recently about surveying the salary ranges for his role to be sure we're competitive, with Al. So I asked him to look at similar sized cities and come back with something on that.
All righty. Okay, so other issues that we wanted to bring to your attention in the budget is worker compensation rates have been increased, by 50% to help us replenish cash. We had a little bit of a propping up the health fund with worker compensation money, so we want to get some money back in that fund, so we're charging ourselves a little bit more on our workers' compensation insurance matrix to build that cash back up. 'Cause I think we were only sitting on about $1 million, right? Then that might tick down a little bit than that. Property liability, unfortunately, is up. Janitorial expenses, we did a better evaluation on where those expenses are spent to spread those costs out better. And then we added, we changed the allocation matrix on the gas locators. The gas department picked up a majority of that expense for a while, even though whenever they do a locate, so they do two locates. They do inside locates, outside locates of the city limits. So whenever they do an inside locate, they're actually locating 5 utilities. They're not up there. They still locate fiber, electric, water, sewer, gas. When they're outside of the city limits, then they're locating potentially 3 utilities. So we just divided the tickets, the work orders, based on what utility is getting the most locates instead of plopping it in the gas fund. On positions, we made a lot of moves in fiscal year 22 this year that you've already approved. So we wanted to review that. And I think bottom line is, other than what you've already approved, it's just the one HR position that's new. And gas. So gas, we did a little shuffle there. We'll talk about that in utilities. And gas obviously has the growth with the villages growth. Actually, the villages informed me the other day they'll be marketing the houses on 470 in August, and they expect the first COs September, October. So then you can count on about 100 houses a month until they hit 3,500.
And on that, just bring it down as part of the rest of the budget. When we talk about the millage rate, because I think if you just look at the existing kind of city, we're obviously very competitive at that 4.01 when you look at the county, and I've never had a problem with not doing a rollback because it looks really good. Caveat being, as these villager residents come in, they're going to look at Fruitland Park and Lady Lake. And Fruitland Park and Lady Lake are at 3.4 and 3.9. And so, again. Anyways, and so I think if it's not this year, definitely next year, we're going to have to be in that Fruitland Park Lady Lake range, or you're going to start getting meetings just packed full of villagers, like Fruitland Park did until they lowered theirs. They were like 5 something, I think, and then they had to, as the growth came in, they started going back down.
4.7
Yeah.
is the
Yeah. So, I do think it's reasonable to maybe hold off a year until we kind of get that revenue coming in next year, but I just wanted to throw that out there that I think that does kind of change the calculations in terms of where our rate needs to be long term.
Are you advocating for 3.8 or staying at 4, based on what you just said?
I'm okay probably doing either, I guess, as we talk through the budget and kind of what priorities are. But I would say that if and it won't be my problem to deal with, but if the commission doesn't, if they
Says the turned out commissioner.
right, yeah, if they don't,
Good luck next year.
yeah, I mean, well, you're gonna have all sorts of money next year from these new houses too. So
Well, Commissioner Roebuck brought that up. We have this slide. We do it every year in the interrelationship between the transfers and those type of things. So it's coming, and we can gloss over it now. But every year we try to get the general fund more independent, get utilities funds operating more. And the biggest thing that we did, I think, was getting that electric transfer down to 6%. Now that's super critical important because that represents what the statewide franchise fee is for non-electric cities. So that's a really good number to have in our belt. And the electric fund keeps that transfer at 6% for this year, so we're able to maintain it. Of course, we'll be recommending an electric rate increase that's due to a lot of different things. Now, so while that 6% is a good number, remember too still, though, is of that 6%, there's still 50% of that 6% that's coming from outside customers. So if you weren't going to have that 6%, your franchise fee would really be 3%. Roughly, right? Because 50% of our customers are outside the city limits. So I think we've done a good job. I've got to say this too while we got down this road. We've done a very good job, I think, of protecting our outside customers and treating them like inside customers with influence. So that's a good thing. But just keep that in mind. But so that's the 6% has two swords there.
By next year, though, you should have a lot of Duke franchise coming in, right? That should help you.
We saw. You jumped ahead of me again there too. So I think franchise fee is up $50,000, and yes, you're right. So you can look at the Duke, and you go with and if you want a rough number for that. So in a year and a half, roughly next fiscal year, you're looking at 300. I think the number from the villages is 3,062 houses. Okay, times the average Duke bill of $150 a month, times 12, times 6%, and that'll be the new revenue number, whatever that is, for fiscal year 24. That's the formula, roughly.
Just one comment, piggybacking off Commissioner Roebuck's comment. I look at this chart where we have all the cities in the county. Should we not add the municipalities and the villages, since that's kind of, I'm piggybacking off his Fruitland Park Lady Lake comment. I guess I'd like to know where Wildwood is.
Yeah, we're keeping it Lake County.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
Because it's central to where Lake. I know we got some villages stuff in there, and the villages is going to be all over the place with what's incorporated, what's not incorporated, what's CDD, and all that kind of stuff. I would just recommend it Lake County.
That was probably more of a question and a
and it's because of it's a Lake County elected charter office or elected position with the tax collector and the appraiser. Kind of work kind of hand in hand, I think. So back to the position. So we've got we already made adjustments for the customer service modifications. We added a utility service tech. The HR coordinator is the new position, and basically the HR coordinator position is to help with the benefits and a bunch of different work. I don't know, our workforce has grown, maybe 20 employees, I'm guessing really 30 net the last 5 years, and that does matriculate into HR with going through benefits and helping employees and getting that stuff processed and keeping things moving around reasonable.
Did we get rid of the benefits coordinator position though?
We just renamed it.
Just renamed it.
Yeah, we called it HR manager, and then same stuff and actually more stuff to Chandra, and then the HR coordinator is to help the HR manager.
Okay.
We took out a maintenance worker. We added and then we added a senior planner this year, and then the stuff and gas. Any questions on the new position? We took out the maintenance technician at the airport, which we talked about this year, and then we approved the land development manager position. That was Ryan Gergen, who we promoted to kind of watchdog all the development to make sure development stuff was getting right. And then we recently promoted Ryan to the Deputy Public Works Director, so we're back in a position where we need to rehire the position that we hired Ryan for, and in the interim, Ryan's going to be doing multiple jobs. I'll skip over this. This kind of was the core thing with the general fund is taxes and enterprise funds makes the general fund wheel go round. We talked about that. Importance of keeping pace with competitive taxes as well as enterprise transfers, which equates to rates. And I think we've done a good job of that. including the rate increases. I think that slide's coming up. We'll talk on. So now jump over to taxable value. The good news there is even though that we're seeing the increases in costs, which made this year's budget hard, I really think we're setting the spring to hopefully 24 is a significantly, 24 and 25 become significantly easier budget years, because after talking about the villages since 2017, our investments will start seeing those in 24 and 25. And you'll see those in terms of the things like Commissioner Roebuck said, with franchise fee increases, ad valorem increases, and a rough number on that. They're blowing the doors off the matrix. When we came to, I think we figured out it was a $175,000 or $150,000 house taxable value back in 17. That's now $265,000. And that's after homestead exemptions. So, and I still think that's probably, hopefully, a low projection. So I'm excited to see those numbers start rolling in. So our fingers are crossed for that. So we should really start seeing some new revenue, which then, our plan was, we got to take care of our village residents that are moving in, but that also helps us come back and reinvest in core Leesburg. And those are the numbers. They speak for themselves. And it's up a little more than 19.29% now, right? That's our new taxable value increase. Those are the July number. Oh,
What's that?
yeah. So it jumped from 14 to, so that is July. So it jumped to 19.
You have the Carver CRA increment, then the Carver CRA was that X.
Those are the jumps of the CRAs. Yeah.
What's the EXP stand for?
The original one is the CRA, and then we did the expansion.
Okay.
And so then that's how it turns around into the new revenues. And again, we talked a little bit here about the electric stressors, trying to keep up. This just to show you that we already kind of had this discussion, but here's the slide about maintaining that transfer at the 6% rate. Back in 13, it was up. And that's a good news. So I don't know where this is, but I'll just jump to that. So we are going to recommend an increase of the electric rate at 5% total, 5% to the base rate and 5% in operations. And frankly, it's the cost of doing business in electric. And there's two ways to look at that cost increase. The first one is with the power cost adjustments. Let's actually, I have a feeling that's the next chart. The power cost. So right now we're at 124.83. Our 5% increase puts us at 135.70. But and that was with the BCPA at $25. We've already adjusted that to $27. So I'm $2 off. But this is the big problem right here. This is the trend that we're fighting. This is dollars a megawatt hour on average that we're paying for our wholesale. So 70, and I'll use the round numbers, 76, 75, 73. Man, we were really singing there at 69, 73, and then bam, $20 a megawatt up. So multiply that over the course. It's several $1 million in the fund. And we've been trying to capture that with the power cost adjustment. Honestly, I think we've been a little slow. And I'm not going to say it dangerous slow. I think smart slow, because we have enough cash to absorb some of that. And our matrix going forward, keep dinking that up. We won't get behind on this now. And we have the cash to absorb it. So that's friendly for your customers and not trying to hit them all at once. So that's a little cash leak there. Maybe you have $1 million or $2. So we're watching that. But then the other side of the house is just operational increases in our competitive wage for the linemen. They get paid very good wages. Then I think you need that market wage rate for them because the lineman world is very competitive and very expensive. Operations for meters, transformers, and all the component high gadget stuff that they get that has seen significant inflation. So we've seen our operational costs now start to increase. So more on that later. But we always talk about this, and that's the cash flow number there. So you see 15.5 is what we projected sitting on. And that normally we've been sitting around 20. So that 5 million is where we've been with power cost adjustments, operation increases, and the capital expansion stuff. So I'm not going to say that's bad because we're keeping up. That's still a good number, but it's time we got to change, and so that's where we'll talk about that more, even though I'm talking about it a lot tonight. But it always goes hand in hand back to the general fund, and it goes back to this electric transfer. So even though we've gotten our transfer number down, which is healthy, the new stuff that we're seeing are those operational expenses. Therefore, that's why we need to look at both sides of the house with the tax number and the utility increase number. Also, the gas rate increases in there, and this was to far below market, the slow equalization to the TCRO rate, the need for additional capital monies, and then last year I presented to you the 2-year step into that to equalize with the base rates. So we bumped it up $4 and some change, which we did for 22. And so I'm going to come back to you this year and say we need that $4 and change to go from 13 to 18 on the customer charge rate. But even with that, we're still a competitive gas supplier. After this step, probably hold tight. Hopefully, we're talking about market rate for water as well. 10% is what we're looking at there, which brings an additional $1 million in which we need for capital improvement, which is main changeouts. So we'll talk about where we're spending that next time. But all those rates have to get looked at with the general fund because, again, we're trying to separate utilities and general fund. And this is our market rate comparison on water, which we're way far behind. So even with the 10%, we're still extremely competitive water supplier. And there's commercial. That's pretty much the overview. So at this time, we'll talk a little bit about the revenues. Don't fall asleep because we've already talked about it. But overall, it's about a $30 million budget. And there's the changes: 11 in taxes, 2 in licenses, 3.3 intergovernmental, 1.2 for charge for services, fines and miscellaneous, blah, 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 and about $11 million in others. So these numbers coming out, the taxes and the other sources is your transfers. So those numbers are getting to be more alike, which is a good thing. So general fund starting to use more general services than transfers to fund the show. We had the discussion on the millage rate. We talked about the tax increase. The franchise fees, we've already talked about that. We see there's an increase in there on intergovernmental for buying the police cameras. And then we see some other miscellaneous fees for zoning has gone up, marina fuel sales, and those type of things.
Is federal public safety police, is that a grant?
Yeah, so that expense, I think the number that we already approved is like about $150,000 for 5 years to fund 72 body cams. We got a grant for year 1. And that's the highlights of the revenues. And there's your yay pie.
What drives the Lake County Library revenue, the intergovernmental revenue? Is it going down?
I think that the county does that. It's based on what the county wants to spend, and then they have a matrix on circulation. I want to say are we the highest receiver from Lake County?
Yes.
Yeah. We're the highest receiver because we have the highest circulation in the county. But so we're getting the lion's share. We're getting the biggest contribution from that number. But when the Board of County Commissioners wants to cut and they cut library, they cut that number, and then our allocation drops. So when that goes down, the BOCC's snipping.
Which revenues, is there a budgeted decrease on interest income? What's up with that?
Well, we should get more.
I did get that.
That was, mind you,
We should get.
yeah, mind you, interest rates have been bad up until, what was it? When did
We're getting
when
at
did the
least
Fed go up?
1%
About a
some
month?
places.
I don't know if they, I mean, if you guys say go to rollback or go to something else, we might go back to those. But, so if we go from 1% to 2%.
You got like an extra $100
Fed-
grand in interest, probably, I think. Just judging on historically and what you're doing now. You
Yeah,
got
I
budget
mean,
125. You probably get
It's a
225.
crapshoot. It's hard.
You got to let me be conservative, guys. but when you guys have those discussions, we can get into that number more. And then our cash number is
One more thing on general revenues. The miscellaneous revenues, we've got like all these different rental things that we do in the city, like pages of them. Are we increasing any of those this year?
These are current rates.
no. So that's like the marina
Like,
fees. and
shouldn't we
all-
be throwing like everything's going up in price? Our labor's going up in price. Like shouldn't we be
Let
having
us
like
go
just
back
like a
and look
like a
and
percent,
look
like
at
a
the
3
marina
to 5%?
fees every year.
I mean everything, like every little.
Let us go
every
back and
rental
look at the
facility
marina
in the
fees
city should have,
again.
like a
I'm
CPI.
gonna say we're probably
5%'s in this year.
it is in. Okay, we
Okay.
did go 5% of it.
Well, that's yeah. Well, I'd put 5% on everything. Like we got like park facilities, we got Pat Thomas Stadium, we got like late fees. I don't know, just like all these fees. Like, I kind of feel like if we're having to pay out more, we should literally be like bumping a little kind of adjustment everywhere.
Gotcha. Expenses? Okay. And then our cash number looks pretty good there as well. So that actually went up a tick, huh? In the past, we've said, recommended that you probably have some money in there if you want to use capital expenditures. Until we finally spend the ARP money and do some of that kind of stuff, I would leave that number alone for now, just to be conservative. Frankly, there may be a couple of little things in there that are different that we can talk about, but by and large, the operations as general fund remain pretty standard, and the costs up and down is a total across the board increase of 5.4%, which represents pretty much a standard level of service. And then, as we do every year, we kind of go through each fund. Any questions on the city commission expenditures? Those are pretty standard. That's your salaries, your benefits, whatever conferences and that kind of thing you want to go to. And that number hasn't changed too much. Commissioner Burry?
It was really nothing.
Okay. That means flip the slide. Executive is the public outreach for Lakefront TV. That's pursuant to their existing contract, which I got 1 more or 2 more years left on that, so I don't think you have to worry about it for October. It's due in December anyway. Administration, that's me, right? Executive, city clerk, and elections. Yeah. Why are we getting rid of the elections fund? Because
It's just $1,000, so we're gonna roll in the city clerk. We don't usually use it, so it seems like a lot to keep it open, so.
be nice.
Al, back to Lake TV. Is that a contract renewed annually?
It is.
I was
But
just-
we put, let me get the answer for that. We had, it was on a 3-year deal that expired this fiscal year, and you renewed Facci Bella. You might have renewed them for 2 years.
Okay, I was just going to say, rather than annual, I was hoping we could do
I'm pretty sure you renewed them for 2.
I was hoping we could do 2 or 3. I mean, we had the
I think
cancellation.
we did it to the maximum that the contract allowed.
Okay, because there is a cancellation clause in there. I believe
There
it goes both
is,
ways.
And I think the commission, we recommended the extension as the max. I'll get you the answer
Okay,
on
thank you.
that. I'm pretty sure you don't have to. Eventually, you're going to have to grapple with the RFP on that just by their procurement rules. I don't think that's this year. City attorney and then miscellaneous. What's miscellaneous?
It's like vacation buyback,
the educational training and that stuff, right? Any questions on those parts?
Just $319,000 change. What was the biggest change? I know.
Last year we transferred 350,000 to the capital projects fund from the general fund, and we're not transferring anything this year.
Okay, and finance is accounting, customer service, and procurement, warehouse, and then I'll stop there. Any questions in finance in general?
Yeah, what's the professional services increase?
For which section?
Under customer service, sorry.
That's, there's two, number one is the mail cost, substantially.
So that's not just, that's the service, and then postage, you're breaking out
The postage,
versus the service.
so we had a big raise but we're also, we switched vendors from Pinnacle to InfoSend. We're paying a little more for InfoSend, that's part of it. But we're also paying about $800 a month still to Pinnacle as a backup. So they send us every month a copy of the bills. And so we have that as a backup, so we don't go through what we went through last time.
Right.
When we had a major shutdown on
Yeah.
our stuff. So we can always, it's just a giant PDF, we can print out the bills and send
That
it
makes
from here.
sense.
So we're gonna maintain that at least for another year to make sure. That's the main thing.
Have we had any success in trying to push people over to not getting a
Oh, we do
bill?
that. We've had a lot of success
Yeah.
with that.
What's our total number on that?
Almost, I don't have that number right off the top of my head, but I can tell you almost every village resident signs up for that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, it's grown. I think we're over 8,000 that just get
Wow.
an email.
Okay.
And we still just offering $5 for people to incentivize.
Yeah,
them?
they get $5 credit on their first bill, just one time.
We thought about doing something like maybe once a year, give more, because it's gonna save us on postage if we sign more people up. Because I think with the villagers, they're probably at home more, they're probably more education and sound with that. And we have traditional Leesburg residents who normally get their mail, and I'm probably guilty because I get in the mail, I don't even open it. So maybe some way we can try to incentivize people to go online and
We have
$5 sound good, but for most people, that's not gonna make them jerk out there and change the tradition of how they pay the bills.
No, and we have done that a couple times. In fact, anytime somebody comes in, we talk to them about that. Every time. But you've got a certain number of customers that they're gonna mail it, or they know the day their bill is supposed to be at their house, and they're waiting for it, and they're either gonna write you a check, or they're gonna come in. We still have people come in every month, more than you would think. But I can get you those numbers. But yeah, we do that. We have done that here.
Okay.
We haven't done it recently, but we can do that.
Okay.
We can put a flyer, an insert into the bill.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Christian and I are both waiting on a better offer for us to switch to electronic. So, I still get mine third way.
Well, we'll give you $5 if you if you just get an email. We won't have to send you one.
No.
It costs us more than that to
I
send.
feel like when I get that bill, I feel like I got my money's worth, maybe.
Human resources is next. Just a little bit of a change there, just that most of that's probably with the addition of the position. Any questions on HR?
Yeah, what's the professional services increase there?
It's $10,000 from pre-employment drug testing that used to be in the health fund. We're putting it in HR now, and an increase for pre-employment background checks, psychologicals, all of that is increasing.
Okay, and then the repair of maintenance of equipment in HR, what would that be? It just seems a big number for an office.
That also includes the online application system.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
And I did talk a lot last year about diversity training, and Al, talked to the insurance company and whatever we worked out on that, but I'll let the future commissioners deal with that.
Yeah, we did double check those numbers. We're spending about 10 grand on diversity training, and we're starting some online training, so I think we're hitting that a little better. IT. IT is relatively the same, and that goes with GIS. Any questions in IT or GIS?
And I do want to say, I was down on Pine Street the other night, and I did my Wi-Fi, and the city of Leesburg came up. So I want to thank the staff for creating Wi-Fi spots in area city facilities. So
And that was kind of like we talked about when we talked about, do we want to do a big giant Wi-Fi project, which was a big number, or kind of just piecemeal it as we go. So Tino and his team gets a lot of credit for that, because they're figuring out the ways how to get these little hotspots going.
It worked.
Police. Police is a big increase. I don't know what percentage that is, $500,000, but most all of this, if you note, is in personnel. We do have a little bit of an increase in operating expenses, but again, where we're seeing the cost increase, that operating numbers, keeping it at that level is a monumental. But again, with police salary increases and a big change in the retirement numbers too.
I don't think the retirement
Was that not that bad? I thought that was bad. What am I mixing it up with?
It was only 30,000. It wasn't bad. It's just really the increases. It's really the increases.
It's just basically the increases.
So are we gonna have to patrol the new areas of the villages, or they're gonna have their own?
No, we will be required to do that.
Okay. And then those numbers that they're bringing is gonna pay for what we have to add, or?
They very much should.
All right. Good answer, Al.
Are we short-staffed? I just see the increase in overtime from 4 to 450. Tells me we're understaffed, or I don't. I was just curious.
If you ask Robert if we're understaffed and you want to give him more officers, he will take them.
No, there was no agenda with that question. I just saw the increase in overtime.
Yeah.
What is that?
I'm going to say it's a LOS question. It's a level of service question.
Okay, that's fine.
We're getting it done with what we have. If we add cops, will it stop crime? No. If we add cops, will it take some load off existing officers? Yes. We did. I think the chief remains very picky in a good way on who he promotes and who he does hire, which has helped us on the personnel side. So we're kind of continually 1 or 2 officers down all the time. And then that number is getting tougher because it's harder to hire cops these days. I do think probably in 24 and 25, with the villages coming on and some other growth issues, we probably will be coming back to you asking for a few officers. We have kicked that can down the road.
Are we competitive on pay? I know we had some discussions, I think, in the last year. I think we bumped pay, help me out on starting officers.
I'm going to say
I'm looking
yes.
at Chief Hicks,
I'm
too.
going to say yes, and the chief should be nodding yes as well.
I remember discussions on the sheriff's office
when you
was
guys
paying
signed
more.
and that goes back to the CBA. We did the big increase. I think, what was it, 5%, and then another
I remember the chart.
3% that we did immediate, and then 5% for October 1,
Okay.
and then there was a bump to be exactly what the SO is paying. So,
Well, the SO's complaining too that he can't keep up because Leesburg and Clermont's paying more. So
well, I would say if the SO didn't bump up, we wouldn't have to bump up. And I have the facts that back that up, because when PBA came to us, they said, this is what Lakes paid. So, and I'll tell you on that number too, I have had words with my colleagues at our city manager luncheons about it's really incumbent on us to control those costs. And everybody cries about a POPCO or the urban cities of Orlando and Orlando SO, and then Mount Dora was the first one to jack those numbers way up. And then so we tried to keep that number down as long as possible until that CBA, and we actually, it's probably the shortest CBA. So this goes back to your question, Mr. Mayor. Are we competitive? It goes immediately back to those conversations we had back in April, where they got a big, giant, fat increase, in my opinion, and we did it in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
and we pretty much gave them what they asked for. which
I remember the
matches
chart.
the
We
SO.
were
Remember
below
that?
the average in that chart.
So-
Okay.
Depending on what the PBA does to the other organizations, we'll go from there. And that's the answer. Today, we're okay. And tomorrow, we probably won't be okay. And then Chief will be saying, I need more people. And then hopefully, I'm going to have some villages money that covers those expenses. So hopefully, the kick the can down the strategies work.
Thank you.
The forfeiture. I skip right over the forfeiture account.
On the back to the police fund. So I noticed so their fuel cost is up like a lot, 20-25%, which is what I would expect. But I didn't see that across other budgets. Are fuel numbers? Are we confident in the fuel numbers across the board?
Taking some of them down.
We mess with those.
Yeah, we went high on all
And
of
we
them.
went high in some spots.
But
And,
like fire was flat.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes we just, yeah.
Okay.
We went high with all of them, what I would
Why
say
not? We'll go
originally.
back. and
Okay,
look
I
at
just
that.
it was just a question, and then not for like now, but like at some point, and I'm not saying this for the police, but just like in general, does at some point does it make sense to look at any type of electric vehicles, given that we have a utility and the maintenance seems to be lower? I don't know. Maybe like for next year when I don't have to deal with it, and you guys they can talk about it. But
We're actually, look, I don't have a good answer for that. We did once upon a time look at the natural gas cars, and it didn't pay. And there's always that magic number when gas rises above X dollars a barrel, then that works. And what we've seen is the price go up and then the price come down. And it's never paid to get off the fossil fuel stuff. I don't know if it's any different. But we are looking at this. One of you guys brought up the charger stations. Am I dreaming that? Was
Public comments.
was that public comments? I knew. Yep, I knew that popped up. So we're looking at that, and we'll look at electric again. My guess is it's probably gonna be like administrative type of stuff. You know, the cops won't want to go there. Or you want to drive an electric car? Rob?
Usually didn't know.
Exactly.
The two COP vehicles that we're getting.
So.
Sue's on patrol.
Are we good with the police department?
Maybe a silly question, but we have a charging station for the police or in the cities. You said we had one here at City Hall years ago. I guess
We had one here. We removed that one. There is one at the library. I have to get Robert. Where are you going to charge your your citizen patrol cars?
But they come with, you can plug it into it.
The garage.
I'll put them all in my garage.
Probably extension cord trip hazard, which is why insurance is going up. Okay, and fire.
But I can just go ahead impact fee, you know, it's gonna be on all of them. So police impact fee, recreation impact fee, and another impact fee. I think the budget said that we suspended them to 2018. And so from 18, 19, 20, 22, are they still suspended? Or
They're not suspended.
we got zero by the election on all of them?
They're not suspended,
No.
but
We just usually budget what we have or what we're gonna spend them on and just let the money go into there, because if they don't have anything to spend it on, we usually don't budget it to go into reserve. So if we're spending money, it's only money we have.
So like recreation impact fee, we are charging.
Yes. And I think we had over 200,000, we were looking at that today, in banked money.
And so I know we talked about the trail, money, is that coming from the recreation impact fee?
There was a portion of it coming from recreation impact fees, some of it,
Okay.
and some of it was the ARPA money.
Because I know Commissioner Cornell was talking about that fund. So we had recreation impact fee that we can say this comes from new home construction. We got 200,000 for new facilities. That may have helped us when we decide what do we spend recreation impact fees dollars on. So that was my question. All of them had zeros by them. So
Well, for example, this one has 708,000 banked right now,
how much?
708,000 in police impact fees, but you have to use it on expansion.
Okay.
So right now, we're just letting it sit.
So like new cars and,
If he gets new officers, then we'll do the new cars and, outfit them,
okay.
build a new station. I don't, those are the
Build a new
things.
station?
If you put a satellite
Oh,
office,
okay.
then we could do that. I mean, there's certain rules on
Okay.
impact fees, so
Okay.
we just let them bank most of the time.
Al, why you looking like that, Al?
Because believe it or not, the spending police impact fees is a hard,
Yeah.
it's a hard number.
We talk about it all the time.
we talked about we tried to spend the impact fees on the body cams.
Yeah.
No,
That didn't work.
Okay.
I think without going sideways, what are the main uses you can spend it on?
if new personnel, their equipment. So when you got to buy them the new guns, the new tasers, the new computers, the new cars. If we did a campus satellite, and that might be something we're going to be talking about as south side of Leesburg grows. That might be someplace we want to add. I think it's just best to just let that money continue to pool, and we're trying to be as resourceful as possible when to tap into that. But
Keep going. You got a couple
expanding
$1
police
million, keep
programs
going.
is difficult. Believe
Pay
it
for
or
your
not.
substation with all your impact fee money.
There you go.
Al, just out of curiosity, a new officer, a car, the equipment you're talking about, what's the number on that per officer? When we start looking in the future?
It's about
It's 50.
75.
50,000?
It's about 75,000 in salary for entry level. So I think what are we 40? Or did we went to 50
Equipment, 200
for the
computers,
new entry?
200, 150?
No,
Yeah.
thousand of computers.
It's to get the.
That's probably a little more than that.
Benefits, everything done with a car. Now, that's 1 year car, so it's paid for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
That's at 100,000 to do that entry, but then you're not paying
Right.
anymore for that. And all the equipment, belt tasers,
It's probably like $1. I'm going to say you're upwards of around $1.25 everything.
So 700 doesn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, so with the villages expansion, that money will come in handy.
4 or 5 officers with what's banked, yeah.
Any more questions on police? Fire? Just the big notes there. Again, the personnel that we modified fire to. Was that another county issue there? We did a CBA that mirrored the police. All those typically go hand in hand. The big issue there was the ladder truck. So we did plan a pumper trunk, which we put in for this year. Chief Morrow says really the last big need he will have after this is what we do with the ladder truck. And so the plan there is to try to seek some grant money to switch that out. And if the ladder truck is gotten, we will get it hopefully with the grant money. And then what you're set for the next
15.
He said the next 80 years.
That's your problem.
15. 15 is the number. Yeah. What's the life? We try to get 15 to 20 years out of an engine.
15 is better, we're at 20 plus now.
2003s and 2004s.
Any questions in fire? And then on the impact fees, they're balancing about 166.
What's the training? It seems to consistently go up. What does that cover?
So the big problem we're having is attracting paramedics. So that is an in-house program to train EMTs to become paramedics.
Okay.
I can't hire them.
You can't hire them. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Public Works. Public Works has a bunch of different divisions. I don't know where you guys will want to stop. Street maintenance, it remains relatively consistent. Facilities, a little bit.
Yeah.
Any attribute increase that you'd want to bring attention to there?
Yes, the repairs and maintenance building, we have weatherization of City Hall and recarpeting of the Venetian Center main room. So those are a couple of the big ones. They
So
also-
wait, go back to Venetian Center. So no, the carpet does look terrible. So what are we putting down in place? Are we putting the same carpet that's going to get ruined in 3 years, or are we putting something that's more durable that can handle the crowd
Mike
that comes?
Thornton had the people come out, and from what I heard, it was like more of a commercial type carpet to put in there. is all I had heard. and that's-
We're putting a little more beefy card.
And we still have to, we still have to spec that completely out. We've got a general price, but color
Right.
and exactly what we're getting, we'll have to.
And I get it, and I get the carpet, but somebody spills some coffee on it, somebody spills some drink on it. It looks nasty. I don't know who picked light colors to go in the visitor center, but it looks terrible. So have we thought about something other than carpet that's going to be more doable, something more versatile that's going to last longer than, 3 years? It's been 3 years now? And we're replacing carpet. So, I don't know who would build a
It
facility
was,
in 3
yeah.
years to replace.
We were saying that too. We had some sound issues.
We talked about some sound deafening laminate type material, and they didn't think it would capture enough sound. And you get that echo back that we had before.
Well, I would suggest that whatever car we put is darker and it's stain resistant, and we clean it on a regular basis, because I think it's embarrassing to walk into a city facility and you got dirty stains on the carpet. And Robux said increase the rent, so I'm paying $1,000 to rent a dirty carpet building. I think it reflects bad on. So I just think we have to be. It's pretty, but when you have usage and it's just not, a group of people that's going to come in and be responsible. Sometimes we get irresponsible people, and we're going to be stuck replacing carpet every 3 years. I just think that's, sound is great, but I think if we're going to do it every 3 years, we're going to have to do something better. When we're looking at carpet, imagine somebody spilling coffee on it and can it get clean? So I think that, and my church has the same problem. I call standing steam out, they clean it, and 2 days later, that stain's still there. So, of course, the mine is not as big as a Venetian Center, but I just think that's something we got to be mindful of, whatever we do.
I thought the idea of the squares was you could pull them out and replace them, but I don't know anything about carpet.
I don't think that's worked. Why?
Okay.
It's just,
It's just not practical.
Okay, thank you.
What is weatherization of City Hall?
fix the roof.
Okay, all right.
All right, so I hear
What are you
thunder and I
doing?
saw this thing leaks all the time.
It was leaking over there one day
Is
out
it
there.
leaking right now? Even no, this roof leaks all the time. It's a constant.
Is it a flat roof, Al?
Is it flat up there? I thought it was like roofs and valleys in there.
It's not just the roof, it's the, what did I just say?
What did I just say?
It's lost what I was going to say. It's in between the roof and the siding.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, the holes in the roof are easy to patch, but it's the liner completely around the
Oh, wow.
edge, everything. It comes in and it seeps down and it goes through.
Oh, wow. How much did that cost, Al? What was that?
What did I have in there? It's
We got a
expensive.
quote, I thought it was about 40.
Brent says expensive.
Well, Brandy's digging up the number.
Okay.
And what's wrong with the parking garage?
The envelope, that's what it is, the building envelope.
What did we have in the parking garage?
30 for the weatherization. I can look up the parking garage.
30 for the weatherization of City Hall.
I don't think
I don't remember.
What's that, Jeff?
that's not even close.
There you go. It's about we're down to 20.
That's okay. You,
Pressure wash
you
it.
can use some of that extra interest income.
I think it's down to 20 now. You took 10 out.
Let Jay get on that fact. What's wrong with that roof?
It's the garage. We've got about 20 grand budgeted to make some concrete repairs and other stuff because it's starting to fleck.
Is it still a main staying clean out the parking garage, or we still having any issues with stuff being left on the parking garage?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think we do a reasonable job of trying to stay after it, but that's one of the ones we got to stay after.
Okay.
Grounds. The biggest expense there in grounds is the contracts with the medians.
Are our crews able to keep up with what we have in the city?
I think we're reasonable. The pine trees. They're looking peaky.
Paul?
Reasonable. And the administration, and then that pretty much any public works before we move into community development.
So is Cliff having an issue? I know everybody is having an issue with, but hiring and maintaining staff in his department.
We have about a 23% vacancy rate.
23%. And what you contribute that to? Working hot sun or pay or mean supervisor? Like what?
All of the above.
All of-
Okay, community development is planning and zoning. That's reflective of the changes and the increase in stuff that's going on in Dan's department. Do you guys have any questions there? And I think we got some money in there too for the comp plan. What did we put? There was 100, and that mixes with the 50. So the comp plan RFP is out as we speak, and there's about 150 grand that total to do that. I think you will spend every penny
So,
of that.
I don't know if it's just me or other commissioners, but I asked about this. Can this department create a list of what's happening in Leesburg? Around by Dairy Queen
Let
today.
me
I
get
see
back with you.
construction
We
lights.
started down, I need to get back with Mike Andrews on that.
Yeah.
And we started that, and I'll get back to you.
I mean, just once a month, this what's happening in Leesburg. Constituents ask us, what's been built behind Dairy Queen? You know, it's kind of silly to say, I don't know. Then I got to email you and ask Al.
That stalled on my desk.
That's your fault?
That's my fault.
Okay.
Actually,
4%.
IT worked on that, and then it came to my desk, and I looked at something goofy, and I was like, I don't quite like it, and then I got sidetracked.
Stop being
That's my fault.
perfectionist. Send it out to us. Don't be a perfectionist all the time. We don't care about the little green line at the bottom of the thing.
Gotcha.
So is that Dan office able to keep up with?
No, that's more of an IT thing.
Okay.
What you asked for is more of an IT thing.
Okay.
And then housing. Any questions in housing?
So what's going to be new happening in the house? I know we got transition from Ken Thomas to Sandra. So any good things going to be happening?
I think at this point, it's status quo. Sandra's still getting her feet wet, and so I didn't want to inundate her with everything right off the bat. So we have a couple meetings coming up, and it's just I think a little transition in there, but I think we'll be okay.
Give her 2 more months.
Exactly. I didn't start yelling at her like I do everybody else yet. I'm nice at first. Library is pretty consistent. Any questions in library?
Contract services.
Janitorial.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And did we jump right to recreation impact
So
fees?
before we get to the library, we talked about doing some things in the back of the library. Did that get shelved, or do we bring that back up? I know we talked about it a little bit, making that back area of the library more useful.
We didn't do any of that, did we? We took that all out.
Took it
How
all
much
out.
was that total that we took out?
We took it out. I
It was a
think,
couple $100,000.
because of the
if I
homeless
want to
problem,
think.
right?
Huh?
We took it out because of the homeless problem.
Homeless and money, I think. And what we kept in was fixing your wall, the partition.
The movable partition.
Was that the only thing that we kept in there?
Yep.
Yeah, we took all the rest out.
So how is the library? I mean, is it just status quo? People come renting books, no new projects, programs, ideas? Look at Lucy. Like, I mean, I say that.
Lucy did. Lucy was like,
Lucy, I got a whole lot of good ideas.
you just
man.
open the can, maybe some ARP money. I think Lucy continues to have pretty good circulation. I think she would like to revisit probably those issues that we cut. And then if you really press her, she'll probably tell you she wants a library expansion. Did I miss anything?
Library.
Thinking about our new site in South Leesburg.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Like one of those drop boxes outside where you give a book, take a book. We could do that.
that was that thing about the Linden Library, right? So with Beacon College, how is that affecting you? Is it putting strain on
They
the
come and they
library?
use the library and they also volunteer. We had a couple of good interns. We had a really good relationship.
Okay.
We do joint programming.
So with them coming in as much, there's nothing that you foresee that we could do to enhance that relationship or the usership of the library?
I think we're building on it as much as we can.
Okay. All right.
We're good with the library. And then we jump into recreation. What is that?
Yeah, in programs, we pulled out the aquatics portion, so you're gonna see a decrease here, and then you're gonna see aquatics come in just to try to separate it
So
out.
aquatics is up.
Yep.
So that changes about $100,000. $100,000 more for running the pool.
So on that, on the operating expenses, because we went in 2020, we went from 96 to 158, and I think that was mostly due to chemicals. And we're going down, but we're only going down to 134. So why is that? I guess what's causing that to stay elevated above the pre-aquatic
I think we're
number?
still taking a shot in the dark on a full year of ops.
Okay.
Because probably some delays in getting the pools open and then a little longer without a pool. So frankly, we still really don't know what the real operational number is going to be. So there's some guessing in electric, there's some guessing in chemicals. And
Yeah, chemicals is just skyrocketed. You'll see that across all our utilities. Chemical
Okay,
costs.
so we're still having a lot of chemical costs that aren't pulled out to aquatic that are in recreation. Is that?
The recreation side is the chemical field.
Field. Okay, got it.
Chemicals.
All right.
That's what I'm saying.
So that's we're still having the increase from the prior year. Okay.
Yeah, you skipped away. He's still on the program.
Are we
you're still, okay, you're so there's the increasing, there's operations increase that Commissioner Roebuck was talking about, which is field chemicals. And then when you go into the new aquatics division, we've got some we don't really know where those operations.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, I'm thinking pool. We're on a different sheet.
So, Brandon, how did the contract services, what would that be taken? Because we took out almost 100,000 between 21, 22. I'm on page 160 on the contract service.
Travis, no.
That quad,
Allison Strange and Associates.
Allison Strange.
who?
Oh, he's right. Last year we had Allison Strange in
Oh,
that
okay,
contract
okay.
services. Yep.
Are we budgeting to keep the pool open year round? We had a limited discussion on that a couple months back.
We did not. I know this is a kind of as is budget.
So what are you projecting? And I mean, how many months out of the year, or what kind of calendar are you looking at?
I think probably, just a rough knee jerk reaction, $100,000. Depending, because you're looking at the utilities, the chemicals, and then the big thing year round is to go to a professional full-time staff. So we dug around at that number. And what was the full-time lifeguard number? 30, 40 grand in the salary. So maybe plus one or two, and then other stuff. So
I mean, I just throw it out for discussion. We spent all this money on the pool.
Look, you got the 267 that's still sitting there, so there's other places to fund. And we don't think having a full-time pool would be great. I don't think it's an easy answer. There's still some other things in there. It may be something you want to look at. And in that case, then we would say, we'll come up with a tighter, if you want us to come up with a tighter number for discussion over the summer,
I just throw it out
I
to
can
the commissioner
we can come back and give you a little bit more of a good estimate on what we say you would put in the budget, and then go ahead and put that in the budget and then give us some time to run that up. But now would be the time to talk about that.
Yeah, and I heard your $100,000 number. How many months are we open now? I mean, is it 6 months, 8, 9?
We expanded it a lot from the old pools. We're open early March. Well, we will be open early March. We'll be open for spring break all the way through like November.
Okay,
on
I mean,
weekends. We have lap swim and exercise classes during the week, but weekends we're gonna keep it open as long as it's warm enough.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the other commissioners. I don't know. I mean, this is the time to talk about it.
I mean, it's the first year, so I mean, I thought we built this pool. We were talking about having competition swimming. Is that not part of what we're talking about?
No, that is, and we can accommodate that.
So that won't be required for full-time lifeguard. That'll be competition swimming will be people.
Okay, so I mean, the pool's open. So like the Leesburg High School, their coaches there, they can use it. Okay.
Which is, I think the open is
But the free
additional
swim,
free swim and those type of things.
We had some complaints about people wanting it open year round.
D1 letter.
Okay, and I'm just looking at the other
So
commissioners.
basically, you're gonna be closed from December,
The cold-
January, February, back open. So 3 months you'll be pretty much closed to open swim.
For open swim.
Yeah, the cold
In the
months.
cold months.
Lap swim,
And
exercise
that-
stuff, that'll still do.
That sounds reasonable. I just want to see what commissioners thought.
Well, I'm good seeing what happened the first year. Second year, people come in knocking on the door, then y'all can adjust y'all schedule.
So back to the Allison Strange thing. So you guys, just staff's not recommending to keep up with that program.
I think we need to talk about, we need to come back and revisit that. That
Okay.
we may have overlooked that.
That's the contract services?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of stuff's coming to the city. So
At least on the baseball side for now. So that may be a number that we need to revisit.
So with the new, we talked about with Sleepy Hollow, Susan Street, with the construction, will that affect your staffing, programming, as relates to us having adequate staff that we have now, or?
Not for fiscal year '23.
Okay.
And you know, and I don't mean to be sarcastic.
No,
just
I'm fine, I'm fine.
operational design. Does construction? So
I'm just trying to think.
now 24,
Kinda
may,
feels like
24,
got nothing to
25
do.
may be different. Marina, we did budget the 5% increase at the marina? And then there's about $278,000 in recreation impact fees available.
and what can we use those for?
You ready? The evergreen change order that might be coming. Well, I didn't want to put that number out there, but no, new construction, new facilities. Obviously, a change order at the pool, a change order at the teen center.
They should be
Were
paying
the
us
first
for-
things that come to mind.
They should be paying us for taking too long.
The Sleepy Hollow, Susan Street, and there is some of that in there, Commissioner, that we'll have those discussions.
Yeah.
So I would not spend any of that yet.
Okay.
And then we always close out with the civic funding. As the commission's kind of directed, we pay this out of solid waste, and it's basically the same organization, same level, which kind of, as you all have directed, and the numbers are there. Leesburg Partnership, 38.7. Leesburg Art Festival, 10.6. Boys and Girls Club, $5,000. Leesburg Area Chamber, $5,000. Community Development Corp, $3,800. Melon Patch, $5,500. The high school band, $1,455, and then the lion's share that goes to maintaining the cemetery. And I'll just. That's
So on the civic funding, the only one, and I'm not against doing it, but I know there's, with the partnership number, we came up with that for Bike Fest because it used to be we gave them a smaller amount, and then we're forgiving services, and we said no, let's not forgive services, let's write a check, and now I think. And Joni can certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's discussion amongst the board about what Bike Fest looks like in the future, and it really hasn't been decided. Would that be?
Right now, we're working on our budget for it. I mean, I think we are going to do something, yes.
Yeah, so if there's like a full Bike Fest, I have no problem with that. If there's no full Bike Fest, then I would want to say, okay, well, come back with a plan with why you need that sum as opposed to, like the 10,000 that everyone else gets. I'm not opposed to setting it aside. It's just kind of, if there's no 3-day Bike Fest,
And not to,
what would it be used
and not
for?
to sidestep that question, my recommendation would be to keep these numbers where they're at. We've still got pretty much all of July, August, September before, so that's 90 days while partnership is talking. And then it's the very first part of October when we start sending out the contracts. So, and remember, so we send the contracts to those organizations, do this and provide us that, and you get your check. So in this case, that might be when we want to put in some modifiers when that contract goes out.
Yeah, and
'Cause worst
I'm not
case-
trying to say do or don't do. Just if you're not, tell us what else you want to do with the
Because
money.
worst case scenario
Yeah.
there is you program the money, you don't spend, and it just stays in solid waste.
Right, I'm okay with that.
I make a comment on the smallest number up there, but didn't we do the band? Wasn't that like a one-time trip they were making to somewhere?
Yes, to go to Washington.
Was that what it was?
Is that how that started? And
Yeah, I
redeveloped?
just,
New York City. make
yes, I thought it was New York City. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, it's a small number. I just, yeah, could the money be given to another nonprofit?
This is really your pleasure.
Well, just for the
You tell us.
record,
And I don't want to put the hot seat back on you. I mean, yeah, you can scratch it.
well, I mean,
I just want to bring the commission's attention, it was a New York City trip, that's all I'm saying.
well, Joni, I want a bigger bike fest, so I hope you come up with a plan that we have a bigger bike fest, and we are the premier 3-day bike fest of the country. So tell your board that they have my support to go bigger.
Okay.
Don't come smaller, bigger.
And then that's tonight's presentation. That's the general fund.
Al, can you maybe next meeting we talked about we set aside money for downtown businesses, buildings, renovations. Can you kind of come back and tell us where we are with that?
I can give you that update right now.
Oh,
We
man,
set
that's
aside $1
fast.
million. We've spent $0. We have had a couple people knock on the doors. There was some interest on the building on 2nd Street that Mr. Frost owns, and that didn't occur. But the buyer ended up buying another building downtown, which is the one on 5th and Magnolia, which he'd be eligible for, and he's got some very good plans for that. So he'll be asking for some funds to fix that building, open it up as office space. There's also the owner of the bank on Main Street next to the Palace. That owner is kicking the tires, and he's been in contact with me. I have encouraged him to continue. I think he's working with Summit Construction to do some numbers on that, so that he's being encouraged to. He's got a pretty big renovation project there, so I have encouraged him to get good construction numbers, get a good plan. That's a great project. He's talking about a multi-use one, so he's probably got a few more months of homework to do. I would not take those numbers off the book. I think we've done a reasonable job to market that, and we'll continue to market that. Hopefully, I would give that some more time before you unallocate that.
How much is Tom Frost building? What was his price?
I don't know what his sale price was
You don't know?
that he was talking that on the most recent sale, and I don't recall what he purchased that for. But that, unfortunately, that building, you guys know the one I'm talking about, right? It's 2nd Street, isn't it?
I think so.
3rd Street. It's got great bones, but the bones are cracked. There's it's got a lot of electrical issues. I think it's got plumbing issues. Most of these old buildings downtown, they've got some significant issues. Just the one with, for example, with the one here on 5th and Market, the sewer actually runs back underneath Turner's and then out the middle of the alley.
Wow.
So we're actually working with that guy to separate it and try to have him not connect underneath the building, but get him to pop out and build a line into the manhole that's a little bit south of their location.
And our funds will help.
So these are the things that, and so this is why that grant is really important, because some of these projects are really neat, and there's some crazy infrastructure issues which are typically a private issue, but I think we need to continue to and keep that money there and just give it some time.
Do our area realtors know about the program?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Is that it?
That's all I have for you for this evening. So next week is we go into the CRAs, the discretionary sales tax.
Thursday, right?
Thursday. The CRAs, discretionary sales tax, gas tax monies, building, housing assistance, debt service, all boring, and then the fund capital projects topics. And electric and gas is in, yep, and electric gas.
Meeting adjourned.